Accepting Different Opinions About Autism is the title of Rachel Stotts' article in the latest ASHA Leader, which is a really nice publication that comes out, I think, every other month from the National Speech Therapy Organization. And it really caught my eye because if you know anything about what I do, I'm both a speech therapist and a BCBA. So inherently, I talk to people every single day who have different opinions about how to support autistic learners. And I try to help groups navigate those tricky situations that come up when we have different schooling, different work experience, different ideas, maybe different lines of research that we're looking at as far as supporting our autistic learners. And Rachel Stotts wrote this really nice article in the ASHA Leader, and she is a speech language pathologist, but she is also a mom and she has an autistic son. He's 29 now. And so we talked today all about how do we navigate those situations where we are working with people who may have different opinions about how to support our autistic learners. I hope that you really enjoyed this conversation with Rachel. Make sure that if you do, that you leave a review on Autism Outreach Podcast. Let me know, do you love this episode? What else do you want to hear episodes about? I am here to support you. And let's get into this episode and conversation with Rachel Stotts.
You're listening to Autism Outreach Podcast, a podcast full of ready-to-use strategies to help those with autism strengthen their communication skills. Here's your host, Rose Griffin of ABA Speech, a speech therapist and board-certified behavior analyst who shares tips you can use in your next therapy session.
Welcome to the Autism Outreach Podcast. Today, I have with us Rachel Stotts. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on. I'm delighted to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I reached out to Rachel because I was flipping through my ASHA Leader, which, if you're not a speech therapist, it is this publication that we get each month from ASHA, our national organization. And I think it's at the end of every ASHA Leader, you can submit an article. And you wrote a really nice article, and it was just very kind about how can we, it was a lot of things, which you're going to talk about, but how can we kind of all get along, even if we have different ideas about intervention, specifically around the area of autism, which is where my passion lies and yours too, personally and professionally. So I'm excited for you to share your journey with us. And that just really resonated with me because sometimes I'll have Alexa play Kenny Chesney. I think it's Get Along. I don't know if you like country music, but I'm like, can't we just, maybe that should be my intro when I start doing these live trainings. You know, I'm going to start doing some more live trainings. Maybe I should play, actually, maybe I should do that because I wish that we could all get along, even if we don't have the same ideas about intervention. We all got into this field to help others. And that's definitely what I'm trying to do here at ABA Speech. But I will stop talking so we can learn more about you. Tell us a little bit about you and I guess initially kind of your journey into the field, why you wanted to become a speech language pathologist and then kind of the work you're into now.
Okay. I was at a different university and I transferred up to Morehead State University. It was called Morehead State University there. And now it's Minnesota State University Morehead. So name change, if I flip-flop, it's the same place. For my boyfriend at the time, kind of. And I started following a graduate student who was coming into the daycare that I worked at to see kids. And I asked her lots of questions. Anyway, that got me into the program. And I continued with my bachelor's degree and finished that here. And then I was due, in the meantime, in the course of that time, we were married. I was due to have my son right before grad school, which I thought grad school was the most important thing. And that, you know, yeah, I'm going to have a baby, but that's okay. It will be fine. Little did I know that my baby was going to start having grand mal seizures right before the start of grad school. I did get into grad school. I did continue with grad school. I spent my first week of grad school in the hospital with my infant son. So that just kind of shifted my priorities, but totally, made it through grad school. And by the time I was finishing up, we had another baby.
Oh.
We had Reese, who he had gone through a lot of early intervention, but he was doing more things that were atypical.
Yeah.
We would have all these neurologists saying, oh yeah, lots of people who have seizures will be just fine. And he had a lot of quirky things he was doing. And of course, I was observing his saliva management and his speech and language development, because that's what I was going to school for. So when he was about 3, almost 4, I'm like, there are some other things here. So long story short, that's ebbing into the Reese story too, but it all overlaps. I got into the field because I'm another speech pathologist. I got into the field of autism because of my son. I really wanted to hone in. Yeah.
Yeah. So because he's, is it 29? I was reading over your bio. Yeah. Okay. So he's 29 now. So he's an adult. So I'm just thinking back to probably what autism looked like then, because what's interesting with my company now, I've been doing trainings for maybe 15 years. So 15 years ago, I started doing trainings, and I would say 1 in 242 people are diagnosed with autism. Now we know it's about 1 in 36. And I know just from connecting with so many people here through the podcast, parents and professionals, that autism diagnosis and services probably looked really different when your son was getting evaluated. So was that a process for you to it seems like you maybe needed to advocate for, no, I think maybe he needs some support, or there's something else going on that would probably allow him to get more services that he needed. So were you having to be an advocate with professionals to get him the evaluation, to get the diagnosis for autism?
Yeah, for everything. I felt like we had a great pediatrician who I would say, I need a referral to whatever, and she'd like, okay, we'll do it. It was actually my team of the place that I was working that I had evaluate him.
Yeah.
I just said, I trusted them.
Yeah.
I mean, they were my support system, and I just said, I need you guys to do this. So he actually had a school diagnosis, which I felt more comfortable with that anyway, because they spent hours and hours evaluating. And then our neurologists and our doctors accepted that diagnosis.
Oh, okay. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. And I think sometimes that's hard for parents. I know parents that when I was doing home-based therapy here in my hometown, it was, if parents were new to special education, they were not in this field, they would feel hesitant to advocate for, ask questions. And that was always nice for me. I was never like an advocate, but being able to help parents and just be a support system. When you're in somebody's home, you get close with those people. They would say like, oh, well, am I allowed to do this with the school district? And it's like, I'm a school-based SLP. It's like, oh, you're allowed. These are your rights as a parent, like whose idea is this anyway, right? We need to take that at the end of the meeting. So that's good, because I think that's hard for parents. Sometimes, you're going to have parents who gear up with their advocates, lawyers, and they're ready to go. You're going to have other people a little more hesitant because maybe it's their first time with that. And you think, oh, well, the doctor, and he's not talking yet. And Aunt Sue didn't talk till so-and-so. And you got so many people in your ear if you're sharing this. And everybody's going to have an opinion about what you need to do. But I think sometimes parents just need to be empowered, like go with your gut, and you need to advocate for your child, which sounds like you were able to do. It's really cool that you have that support around you. And you wrote this really great article for the ASHA Leader. And I'm just wondering what motivated you to share that information? Like, what were you seeing out in the world, either in real life, or I'm curious from my own personal question, were you seeing kind of this trouble with collaboration or kind of a negative attitude when we come to helping autistic individuals from a different perspective? Are you seeing that in your real life work, or are you on social media? Because I'm on social media. So for me, I see all that really in my social media life. In my real life, my real work life where I work, I don't see that type of, disagreements, I guess, or contentious situations. But tell me a little bit about what motivated you to write the article.
Okay, I'm just going to back up a little bit to when Reese was little.
Yeah.
There was no social media.
Okay.
I mean, we had landlines.
Oh, right.
I mean, I didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
There wasn't even Caring Bridge. I think about how great Caring Bridge would have been for his seizure disorder and all of the
Yeah.
medical stuff we dealt with when he was younger, but there wasn't that stuff. And so anything, I could look up stuff online,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like it is now, where there's just nonstop. I am on social media, but so last April is kind of, 4 years ago, my daughter was in my graduate class. And right before going into the class, which is called Social Cognition, I read a blog. And it was kind of, if you do this, you don't care about people with autism. If you do this. And I walked into class and I started sobbing, just sobbing. And I was so like, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, what is my daughter going to think about this? I pulled myself together enough to explain why. And I'm like, oh my, all I've been doing for 25 years at that point, or whatever it was, is caring about people with autism and making sure and fighting for them. I've been advocating not just for my son, for all of these folks that I've been working with. And so that was kind of one of the things. And then last April, we had a snow day here. It was right at the beginning of April. And I'm like, I felt like this rebel. I'm like, I'm going to wear my puzzle piece t-shirt today. And I'm just like, seriously? I have to wait till there's a snow day in Minnesota where I'm not going to be out and about because, I mean, from a professor standpoint, I'm like, everyone should expect that I know what the history is and this, that, the other thing. But I have all these great autism shirts and memorabilia and different things that people have given me. And I'm like, and I only feel safe wearing it in my home on a snow day. So I started writing right there. I was like, I had to get it out. My original article was a lot longer than what ended up in the ASHA Leader. But what really was one of the catalysts was this new mom who had, and this was on social media. A lot of it is on social media. I've just had tiny little tidbits in real life. But this mom had posted this shirt that she got a Cricut and she made the shirt and had puzzle pieces. And I love someone with autism. And the commentary towards her made my heart break. Because I'm like, no one should treat other people like that. And no one, that's not supporting that mom at all. And obviously, if you're on here and paying attention to things related to autism, you must care about someone or some, have some affiliation with ASD. You must know that there's some conflict across the symbolism with the puzzle piece and the infinity sign. And I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken for her. I was heartbroken for any other parent who's felt like that. I felt personally kind of assaulted. Just because I think my son is a puzzle. We're constantly trying to figure him out. We're constantly trying to figure out what he needs, what his body needs, what his body is telling us, what his communication is telling us, what his sensory system is telling us. It's a puzzle. And so for me, I don't take a lot of offense with the puzzle piece. And a lot of the folks that I work with and have worked with over the years, the majority of them have been complex communicators who have exhibited a lot of challenging behaviors and who have not been verbal communicators, who usually have an AAC system or some sort. And so this in my mind is like the people I'm thinking about, where everybody around them, we spend a lot of time being detectives on trying to figure out what they need and what they, whatever. Anyway, so I got my feelings out on paper and sent a little snippet to ASHA, and I heard back right away. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Because I really thought I was going to get a lot of backlash. And I got a lot of support, actually, a lot of support. So I felt really good. The people who didn't like it or disagree with me maybe didn't comment back to me, but the number of people that sent emails and stuff, I'm like, oh, these people are taking time out of their day to thank me for writing this. I can't be the only person who feels like this. So.
No, I definitely did. And I love that, that you shared that. And I actually did have an autistic adult on, I think it was last summer. No, maybe it was the summer before. He lives here in Ohio where I am. He's almost, I think he's in his 60s now. And he was one of the people who was instrumental in creating the puzzle piece. And he had been on Oprah back in the day and traveled internationally. Now he's kind of living a quieter lifestyle here in Ohio with his family. But we just talked about the controversy over the puzzle piece. And I know that I have worked with people in the field who are BCBAs. I'm just thinking one person in particular, just lovely person. She's a BCBA. She has an autistic son, and and there's a lot of people out this. She has a tattoo of a puzzle piece. And I think that's what's so hard. And when you're talking and you're like, you should, and we have to be a detective. And I have this icon I do. We're an ASHA provider and an ACE provider for CEUs. And I have this little clip art puzzle piece when I started my business 6 years ago that I put on a lot of my slides because I have felt like we have to be a detective because I too help to support people who are not yet speaking and use AAC devices. That's why I was smiling. I'm like, oh my goodness, my long lost friend here, because I too feel that way. And I just don't know if this is going to come to a head because when I first started in the online space, it was not, no one hated me automatically because I was a BCBA. I really, and most of my customers who purchase my membership and courses, they are speech therapists. I have BCBAs too, but it still is mostly speech therapists. I don't know if that's just because there's more speech therapists than BCBAs, but there wasn't this whole, I'm not going to collaborate with you. Like some of the people I look back that I had on the podcast, who I still have a nice relationship with. I know they would never come on my podcast now because their message they're putting out there is so anti-ABA. And I just don't understand why it has to be like this. I don't know if it's going to come to a head where people who have level 3 autism or if there's going to be severe autism, because oftentimes the people who are, at least it seems to me, are saying bad things about ABA tend to be people who are conversational and talking on their own and they're not representing the whole spectrum of people with autism. And so maybe someday, I won't, and really, I don't get a lot of hate online, but I just know that there's some speech therapists that would never, ever do a talk for me, do any kind of video with me that I did back in the day, because we're in these two separate areas. And it's either you do use ABA or you don't. And it doesn't seem like there's much middle ground. So, and I think that's hard for parents, especially online when you see a parent asking about either ABA or Gestalt processing. It seems like it has to be so, we're here, we're separate. Do you feel that way too? And I feel bad for parents who ask these innocent questions online. And I'm like,
I know. I try, like my husband says, don't get in that rabbit hole because you rile yourself up, then you rile me up, and then we're all right.
Yes.
The thing, ABA is an evidence-based practice.
Right.
I mean, the thing about it is like, I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. And I've always said I've been an eclectic therapist.
Right.
Because what I do is what I feel like my clients, students, patients, whatever realm I'm in, what they need.
Right.
And sometimes they need ABA and sometimes they need floor time and sometimes they need something else. And the thing about it is that educating myself on all of these practices early on and then continuing to do so, because I know there's always shifts in assessment.
Right.
I hear what people are saying. People, autistic adults are saying. I do believe that some of the folks that I've been working with have been traumatized by some of the therapy that they have endured. That does not mean every therapist who does a certain type of therapy is bad.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, just for example, I would work with, we didn't have a ton of BCBAs probably 15 years ago, and now we have more of them. But even the evolution in the BCBAs in terms of understanding sensory processing and things like that, I'm like, it isn't exclusive.
Right.
Like our treatment practices, you could be a BCBA and you could do all kinds of other treatment techniques if
Right.
your person needed it.
Sure.
And so that's kind of my point. The other thing is like we're all at different levels of learning. And so as long as we are continuing to learn, I think that's important. And listening, I listen and I try to stay informed about the stuff that's happening online. But I also, what I'm trying to teach my students is to make sure that they can evaluate what they're listening to and what they're hearing, and don't just jump in to the deep end feet first and buy into everything without doing your own homework and evaluating your own belief system. I feel like the pendulum is swinging way over. And my hope, like you kind of brought that up, will come back. I mean, there used to be the saying, if you met one person with autism, you met one person with autism.
Right.
Yet all of a sudden we're hearing some autistic adults say something. And my thought is like, I hear you, but that doesn't mean you're speaking for these people that I work with.
Right.
And I might feel cautious about even saying that out loud.
Right.
Just because I'm like, oh, now I'm going to get it for saying that. But I don't think one person, one therapy, one anything works with this population.
Right.
And that's the part. And I do think that we're all at different levels of understanding and learning, especially. And I also, which my students will say, I don't want people to call me an expert in the field of autism. I honestly don't feel like anybody is. You could be an expert in one part of it.
Yes.
I said the closest thing I am to an expert is understanding my own son. And when I am an expert kind of with him and I still think he's a puzzle.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's an evolving kind of treadmill of information and knowledge and sorting it out. And it's exhausting. Like I used to try to keep up with all, like everything. And I'm like, there's no way. There is no way I can keep up. Like I would have zero life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sounds like me. No, one of my goals is in 2024 is to put myself on a social media behavior plan. Actually, I'm doing great. My one thing I'm sticking with is I don't check any social media till noon. It's hard because I have an online business. But I don't need to always be on there because I have people to help me and they schedule content and I make it up and, create it and things. But I have been sticking to that. Now it's only January 8th when we're taping this. So it's been 8 days. But I'm sticking to it. No, it is hard because you dip a toe, and then I too, way back in the day, and I've gotten kicked out of a lot of Facebook groups because the school-based SLP one a long time ago because, somebody would have a question about somebody who's engaging in unsafe problem behavior and they're not engaging in therapy. And I don't know, back in the day, I just used the word, I would say ABA, and then I was immediately kicked out. But I don't get into those conversations anymore. And I just feel like, you know what? I'm going to lead by example. This is me in my therapy room. This is how I do things. And honestly, unless I run Facebook ads or something, I haven't got a lot of hate. But it is hard. And I think it's ever changing. I think the thing is too, is like when we know better, we do better, and I try to stay on top of research. That's something we do. I have a membership here called the ABA Speech Connection. And so for members only, we read journal articles like from speech therapy or from the field of ABA. And then both professions are in the membership and some parents. And then we learn together on these topics that are more advanced. And, I stick with science, I stick with research, and that's not always going to get me the most likes on social media. But you know how it goes out there. So it can be very overwhelming. But I think it's great that you're helping your students understand how to navigate that because you can see somebody say something online and then you think to yourself, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Have I done everything wrong? Like somebody said, oh, we should throw away everything that we learned in graduate school. And I'm like, should we? Should we throw every single thing away? Obviously, it's a science and there's more research and we can refine our practice. But I learned a lot in my 8 years in school because I'm a BCBA too. And so I think it's great that you're helping students and they can see that you are in the autism world as a parent and as a professional. So I would have loved to have, an instructor with that level of I'm going to say expertise, but I know you don't like that word. So what advice do you have for either students, professionals, parents who are struggling, with others who have these different ideas about intervention? I guess, what is your words of wisdom on how to kind of navigate, I guess, what's out there in the world? If you had to talk to a parent who maybe has a newly diagnosed child, or, a speech therapy graduate student who sees like that we should hate everybody who does PECs. That's something that comes up a lot,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah, PECs has probably helped some people, and maybe other people it wasn't the best intervention. Just like you said, everybody kind of has a
Mhm.
different need. So I guess, how can we navigate all that information that's being thrown to us online?
Well, in terms of like teamwork and working on teams from not just online, but in general, remember who you're there for. I mean, I go to a team, I'm not there for me, I'm there for that individual. And sometimes that means checking myself and making sure that it's not my feelings or my opinion or whatever that's getting in the way of what that person needs. And same from other team members. So sometimes and I'll say that to the students too, remember why, because collaboration is hard sometimes. Remember why you go into those meetings. Remember why you're there. You're not there to be besties with the whole team. You're there to make sure that you're being present and doing the best work you can for that child. Or for me, I'm in peds, so I say kids a lot, but individual, whoever it is.
Yeah.
In terms of navigating, I started running a support group when Reese was about 6. So 23 years, I'm still doing this. But part of it was because I had to advocate so hard for everything. And I'm like, I don't want other parents to do that. Plus, I had this background that should make it easier. And I'm frequently telling parents, oh my gosh, every time I had to go I was in IEP meetings. I worked in the schools for the whole first part of my career.
Yeah.
And every time I went to one of Reese's IEP meetings, I was a wreck. I thought I was going to throw up, and I was so nervous and all these things. And I'm like, I was prepping myself for, they're going to tell me bad things about my son, and then I'm not going to hear anything else they're saying. And so I usually tell them that those feelings were my feelings going into it. And if that's how you're feeling, I do understand that part of it. I also, back in the day, would say, be careful about what you're looking at and reading and who's trying to offer a solution to you. Because I would say, I've referenced this in the class, and the students are like, we don't know what that means. Snake oil.
Oh, yes.
Like,
I know. I'm over 40. I do know what that
and I'm like, what that means is, back in the day, when the covered wagons would come into town, and that kind of goes back to that idea that not just one thing is going to be the big change for someone, and isn't going to just heal, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that from the standpoint of people that I've heard, so
it's hard.
To be really cautious about what you're reading, and to find a community that is supportive. And if anything else, you need lots of support. It does take a village. And it continues to take a village. I rely very heavily on my village. And, a lot of what I'm finding is a lot of people aren't getting that piece of it. And then they, so you're not feeling supportive already. And then you get into these negative spaces online, and, mental health and support and whatever just plummets. And it's heartbreaking for me. It really is heartbreaking, because I really care. I care about the people. Yeah. And I care about the people who are supporting the people. Right. Because I have been a lifelong caregiver. And without supports and watching out for myself, this could look way different.
Yeah. No, I love that you bring that up, because I do feel like people need to have, and that's what's nice about online now is that people, if you can't find something in person, I know at our membership, the ABA Speech Connection it's mostly professionals, but I have some parents that have joined who want to learn more about the VB map or, like their child's getting evaluated. So they have, questions about that. And it's neat to be able to have parents to have that community of support, because I think the work that we do is so important that you don't want to do it alone. If you have questions, it's nice to be able to ask somebody to have that support. So it sounds like, gosh, your support group that's really nice that you have that community, and that you were able to start that with your knowledge base in speech therapy. And, I love that you bring that up about IEP meetings. They are I don't like IEP meetings either. I'm a school-based SLP. I don't have to attend a whole lot because I only work part-time, but they are stressful. I feel like they're stressful for everybody included. And it's just hard because sometimes you can't always say what you want to say, and you gotta, can't show your cards in the schools. And it's really, it's hard. It's a hard one. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on. It was an absolute delight to connect with you today. And if you have your ASHA Leader, do you know what month that was in? Not to put you on the spot. Was it last month? Was it? What?
I have it right here.
Okay, what month was it?
One of my coworkers just gave me theirs. It was the November-December.
Okay,
issue.
So November, December. If you want to read her article in your speech language pathologist, it is a really, it is brief, but it is impactful. So thank you so much for taking time to write that article, because I know from the feedback that you got, and there's so many other people that probably read it that didn't take time to email you. Thank you for putting positive energy into the space that is so very needed.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me on.
It was great to connect.
That.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Autism Outreach. If you enjoyed the show today, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode full of actionable strategies you can use in your therapy room. Write a review too. That would mean so much to me. I always love hearing from you. Have a specific topic that you want included on a future show? Reach out over on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or visit me at www.abaspeech.org.